For analysis, let's turn now to Mansour Farhang. He is a former diplomat at the United Nations and a retired professor of international relations at Bennington College in Vermont. Great to have you on the program today, Mansour. Could you talk about Raisi's legacy and the impact he's had on Iran's governance?
The president in the Islamic Republic of Iran has no real power. He is chosen by the supreme leader. And if he follows the supreme leader, he can stay and maintain administrative function. Otherwise, in the past 45 years, Iran has had eight leader of the executive, that is the constitution of Iran, has separation of powers, executive, legislative, and judiciary. But in the same constitution, the supreme leader, who is described as the viceroy of God on earth, has absolute power. And over the past 45 years, 6 of the 8 presidents who raised some questions, not question about the nature of the regime, but with respect to order and stability, as well as deep economic problems of the country, they were marginalized. And today, they're considered as really individuals who are not following the supreme leader, including President Khatami or President Rafsanjani, President Ahmadinejad, and the first president, Bani Sadr, who received over 70% of the votes. He was actually forced to leave the country and go to France as a refugee. Right. So he was pursuing and actually implementing the orders and direction of the supreme leader, but he had absolutely no real power himself. Yeah. More than that, he was also in charge of the judiciary, and thousands of people were executed based on the vote he gave. For example, 2 years ago, demonstrations in Iran for women, largely led by women, against mandatory veiling. 700 people were killed on the streets. Right. 22,000 people were arrested, and 2,500 people were injured, and some of them blinded. And he defended all in the name of protecting Islam. Right. So it's really that we are talking about a man who had absolutely no commitment to human rights, and he completely rejected any idea of criticism, and he was supporter and follower of Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader, without raising any kind of question.
So in that sense, given that Raisi stood so close to the pinnacle of power in Iran, he was tipped to really rise to the very top. Given that elections have been called now for June the 28th, is there an obvious successor within Raisi's ranks that will follow in his footsteps?
First of all, he was not really elected. Using the word election in Iran is very much like using the word election in Stalinist Russia or Hitler's Germany or Kim Jong-un's North Korea. There is a committee, it's called the Guardian Council, consists of 5 members. They're selected by the supreme leader. The Guardian Council decides who is qualified to run for public office, whether the parliament or the presidency. And they reject anybody who has the slightest kind of criticism or questioning about what is going on in the country over the past 45 years. So he was chosen by the supreme leader, and his successor will also be chosen by the supreme leader. The shenanigans of election and all that is largely for propaganda, and it has absolutely nothing to do with reality.
Right. Now, in terms of the crash, it also took the life of Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian, who played an active role in finding ways to ease the impact of sanctions on the country. How will the US and other Western powers view this rupture in Iran's government, do you think?
I think that the intelligence communities, as well as the governments in the United States and in Europe, they're well aware that the only person who makes the fundamental decisions concerning the issues inside and outside the country is Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader. So they know exactly that with whom they should deal with. For example, the negotiations which went on with respect to creating the nuclear deal with Iran, the president at the time, Ahmadinejad, didn't even know that these negotiations were going on in Qatar for 2 years. So it really doesn't make any difference with respect to the perspective of the United States or European countries or London or Russia or China. They all know that in Iran, unfortunately, like other countries, when Saddam Hussein was in power, there was a parliament, there were elections. They were absolutely meaningless. Unfortunately, the Islamic Republic is the same way. Let me give you an interesting example. It's in that sense, Iran has not changed since the Shah was ousted. The prime minister of the Shah, Mr. Khomeini, he was the prime minister for 13 years. A reporter asked him, "You're the second personality in the country. What do you think about such and such an idea?" He said, "There is no second personality in this country. There is only one personality, and that is the king." It means exactly the same over the past 45 years. Instead of a king, now we have a cleric.
Right. Mansour Farhang, really appreciate your analysis today. Thank you.